Minjun Kwan's hands shook on the steering wheel. 3 hours ago, his assistant sent the property report. The old house in suburban Atlanta, the one he hadn't touched in 4 years, showed utility usage. Someone was living there. He should have called the police. He didn't. Something stopped him. Something that felt like a memory trying to surface. The gravel road appeared exactly as he remembered. Too narrow. Too dark. Trees hung over it like they were protecting something. Then he saw the light. The porch light. The one that died the week after Ji-won's funeral. The one he never replaced because replacing it felt like admitting she was gone. But it was on. Hey besties, before we dive into this story, tell us where in the world you're watching from, and what time it is right now. Someone near you might be watching too. And don't forget to subscribe to support and appreciate the work we do on this channel. Minjunes Tidszeitend. He parked and sat there, engine running, staring at that impossible glow. A shadow moved past the window inside, small, child-sized. His door opened before he decided to open it. His feet touched gravel. The air smelled like pine and rain and something cooking. Cooking in his dead house. Cooking like how Ji-won used to make jjigae on cold nights. The porch step creaked under his weight. The same creak that used to announce him coming home. He reached for the door and stopped. What if they had a weapon? What if this was a setup? What if he was about to ruin something fragile? His hand touched the knob. It turned unlocked. Warm air hit his face first, then the smell. Gochugaru and collard greens mixing together. The hallway light was on. So was the kitchen light. The floors were swept. A woman stood by the stove, her back to him, rocking slightly. A baby slept against her shoulder. Beside the table stood a girl, maybe 7 years old, barefoot, watching him with eyes that didn't blink. She didn't scream, didn't run. She just tilted her head like she'd been expecting him. You're here, the girl said quietly. Minjunes Mill opened. Nothing came out. The woman turned. Her face went pale, but she didn't drop the baby. Didn't move. The woman started. We didn't take anything, the girl interrupted. Her voice was steady, calm. Mom said we couldn't. We only used what was already here. Minjun found his voice. You're living in my house. It wasn't a question. It was disbelief shaped into words. The girl nodded. We needed somewhere safe. Safe from what? The girl glanced at her mother, then back at him. Everything. A toddler crawled out from under the table, clutching a wooden block. She looked up at Minjun and smiled. His heart cracked. I can explain, the woman said quickly. I didn't know anyone was coming. I was told. Who told you? Minjun's voice came out sharper than he meant. The woman's lips pressed together. The girl stepped forward. Are you going to make us leave? Minjun looked her. Really looked. There was something in her face. Something that reminded him of Ji-won. That same calmness. That same knowing. No. I don't know, he said. The girl nodded slowly like that was an acceptable answer. Okay, she said. Then we'll wait. Minjun stood in his own kitchen like a stranger. The woman's name was Naima Williams Kim. She said it twice because he didn't respond the first time. She was a widow. 6 months. 2 daughters. No family close enough to help. No community to catch her. Someone told her the house was abandoned. She didn't say who. Minjun should have pressed harder. He didn't. He was too busy watching the girl. Skyly. That was her name. AFROKOREAN. She moved through the house like she'd memorized it. She stepped over the loose floorboard near the stairs without looking down. She avoided the corner of the hallway where the floor always felt cold. The spot where Ji-won used to say the air held sadness. How long have you been here? Minjun asked. 3 weeks, Naima said. And you knew the house wasn't abandoned. Naima's hands tightened around her mug. I knew someone owned it. I didn't think they'd come back. Skyly walked to the mantel and straightened a picture frame just half an inch. Barely noticeable. Minjun noticed. It was a picture of him and Ji-won on their wedding day. Her in hanbok. Him in a suit. Both of them smiling like they'd just solved the world. Don't touch that, he said. Skyly pulled her hand back. Sorry. It was crooked. It's supposed to be crooked. Skyly looked at the frame, then at him. Why? Because my wife put it there. Because the last thing she did before she got sick was adjust it, and I never moved it again. Just leave it, Minjun said. Skyly nodded and stepped back. That afternoon, Minjun called his lawyer. He stood outside so they wouldn't hear him. I need you to check something, he said. The house on Marlow Road. Pull the records. Find out who authorized access. Find out everything. His lawyer promised answers by tomorrow. Minjun hung up and turned around. Skyly was standing right there. You're calling about us, she said. You shouldn't sneak up on people. I wasn't sneaking. You just didn't hear me. Minjun crossed his arms. What do you want? To show you something. She led him to the piano in the living room. The cover was open. The keys were clean. Spotless. I wiped it, Skyly said. It was really dusty. Minjun's holds closed. No one touched that piano. Not since she. Who said you could touch it? No one. But it was sad. Pianos don't get sad. Skyly pressed one key. Middle C. The note hung in the air like a question. They do when no one plays them, she said. Minjun stared at the keys. His wife used to play every morning. Juan. She was terrible at it. Off rhythm. Missing notes. But she loved it. She loved the imperfection of it. She used to say, Marcus, perfection is boring. Broken is honest. Did you play it? He asked. No. I don't know how. I just cleaned it. Why? Skyly looked up at him. Her eyes were old. Too old for a 7-year-old. But certain. Because it wanted to be ready. Ready for what? For when you came back. Minjun's chest felt tight. I didn't come back. I came to see who broke in. Skyly tilted her head. But you're still here. She walked away before he could answer. That night, Minjun lay on the couch because he couldn't bring himself to take the bedroom. The bedroom where Ji-won used to sleep. Where her reading glasses still sat on the nightstand. Where her favorite silk pillowcase still held the faint smell of her jasmine perfume. He stared at the ceiling and listened. Footsteps upstairs. Water running. A baby crying softly, then stopping. Naima's voice singing something soft in a language that wasn't English. Something that sounded like a lullaby. Like survival made into a song. The house sounded alive. He hated it. He needed it. Somewhere above him, Skyly whispered to her sister. He's staying tonight. Maybe tomorrow too. Minjun closed his eyes. Maybe, he whispered back. Wait. Did you just feel that shift? Because that moment right there changed everything. If you're invested in this family now, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Minjun discovers the truth. And comment below. What would you do? Would you let them stay, or would you send them away? I need to know what you're feeling right now. But here's what Minjun doesn't know yet. His wife Ji-won didn't just leave him money when she died. She left him a plan. A plan written before the sickness took her. A plan that reaches across 4 years of silence and forces him to choose between staying broken or becoming whole again. And what he finds in that envelope will make him understand that sometimes the most powerful love is the love that refuses to let you disappear. Subscribe. Because the next chapter reveals everything. Morning came quietly. Minjun woke on the couch, disoriented. For 3 seconds he forgot where he was. Then he remembered. His house. Not his anymore. Coffee sat on the side table. Still hot. A small plate held toast. Butter. His favorite jam. The expensive kind from that market in Buckhead that Ji-won used to go to. Skyly stood in the doorway, watching him wake up. Mom made extra, she said. Minjun didn't move. I didn't ask for this. I know, but you look tired. He looked at the coffee mug. Blue ceramic. The one Ji-won always used for him. She said the blue kept coffee hotter. A small thing. A ridiculous thing. But he'd held that mug 10,000 times. Her hands had held it before his. He couldn't drink from it. Leave it, he said. Skyly didn't argue. She just nodded like she understood. Like she'd already known he wouldn't be able to drink from that mug. Downstairs, Naima was making breakfast. Real breakfast. Not cereal. Not something quick. Jjigae. Korean stew. Steam rose from the pot and filled the kitchen with warmth, with aliveness. Hope sat in a high chair. Where did that come from? How long had they been planning this? And banged a wooden spoon against the tray. Naima sang to her in a language Minjun didn't recognize. Kosa maybe. Or Zulu. Something that didn't belong in this Korean-American house, but somehow fit perfectly. Skyly hummed while folding laundry at the kitchen table. Humming and folding with the precision of someone much older. Her small hands knew exactly how to fold each shirt, how to pair socks, how to make chaos into order. Minjun watched her without meaning to watch her. You're good at that, he said. Skyly looked up. Dad taught me. He said everyone should know how to take care of things, even when things are hard. She said it like she was reciting scripture, like her father's words lived inside her and had become her own words. Minjun turned away. After breakfast, Skyly took his hand. She didn't ask. She just took it like it was already hers to take. Come with me, she said. She led him to the living room, to the piano that he hadn't opened in 4 years. The piano that Ji-won used to play badly on Sunday mornings. The cover was open. The keys were clean, spotless, shining like they'd been cared for. Minjun's voice came out sharp. No one touched that piano. Not since. It was sad, Skyly interrupted. Really dusty. I cleaned it. Who said you could? No one. But it was sad. Minjun störte her. Pianos don't get sad. Skyly pressed one key. Middle C. The note filled the room. Pure. Simple. Honest. They do, she said. When no one plays them, they get sad. They forget why they exist. Minjun ist zeitend. Did you play it? He asked quietly. No. I don't know how. But I cleaned it. I made it ready. Ready for what? Skyly looked up at him. Her eyes held something ancient. Something that 7-year-olds shouldn't know. For when you came back. For when you stopped running. He couldn't speak. She walked away before he could try. That afternoon, Naima asked him to sit. Really sit. At the kitchen table. With her. I need to tell you, she said. I need you to know. Before you call your lawyer. Before you make decisions. I need you to understand. Minjun sat. Naima looked at her hands. At her wedding ring, still on her finger. Still worn despite 8 months of widowhood. My husband was David Kim. African American. Military officer. Good man. The kind of man who taught his daughter how to fold clothes and fix things and survive. He died at work. Heart attack. No warning. 1 minute he was fine, the next, her voice cracked. The next he was gone. Minjun listened. I didn't know what to do. I had Skyly and Hope and no family that could help. No community that would take us in. I was living in my car for 3 weeks before the lawyer called. A lawyer I'd never met. A man who said there was a program. A widow assistance program. He said there was a house. Empty. Available. For widows with children in crisis. And you didn't ask whose house it was? Minjun said flatly. I asked. He said the owners didn't use it. That it had been empty for years. That the owners wouldn't care. I cared. Naima's eyes filled with tears. I know that now. I didn't think you'd come back. The lawyer said you'd been gone 4 years. He said the house was a memorial to your wife. That you couldn't bear to live there. Minjun stood up. He walked to the window. He watched Skyly playing with Hope in the backyard. The girl was pushing her sister on the old swing that Ji-won had put in when they first moved in. When they thought there would be children someday. When they thought there would be a future. How long have you known, he asked. About the house being mine? Since the 2nd day. I saw the deed. I saw your name. And I almost left. Why didn't you? Naima's voice was barely a whisper. Because I had nowhere else to go. That night, Minjun couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch and listened to the house. Listened to it breathe. Listened to it be alive. Footsteps upstairs. Water running in the shower. A baby crying softly, then stopping because Naima's voice came singing. A lullaby in a language Minjun didn't know but understood anyway. The house sounded different than it had in 4 years. It sounded like it was being lived in. It sounded like it was being loved. He hated it. He needed it. And somewhere in the silence between those two truths, he began to understand that they might be the same thing. Upstairs, Skylee sat at the window. Hope slept between her and Naima. The city lights twinkled below them. The girl whispered into the darkness. "He's staying tonight," she said to her sister. He didn't call the police. He didn't yell. He just sat. He just listened. Hope slept. "I think," Skylee whispered, "maybe tomorrow he stays too. Do you feel it? That moment when you realize someone is watching you. Really watching you. Seeing past your anger to the broken person underneath? That's what Skylee is doing to Minjun. And he doesn't even know it yet. But here's what's about to happen. Minjun is going to call his lawyer tomorrow. And his lawyer is going to tell him something that will change everything. Something that will prove that this wasn't an accident. That Ji-won didn't just die and leave him alone. She left him a message. A plan. A reason to keep living. And when Minjun finds out, he's going to have to choose between holding on to his grief or stepping into a future he never saw coming. Subscribe right now. Because what your wife leaves you after she's gone can be more powerful than anything she could have given you while she was alive. And you're about to see what that looks like. Comment below. If you were Minjun, would you trust them? Or would you send them away? The call came at 9 a.m. Minjun was making breakfast. Something he'd never done in 4 years. Eggs, toast, coffee in a different mug. One that wasn't blue. One that didn't hold Ji-won's ghost. "Mr. Kwon," his lawyer said. "I have the information you requested." Minjun's hand stopped moving. "The property trust," the lawyer continued, "was established 4 years ago. Before your wife's illness progressed. Before she died. Yes, before she died." Minjun sat down slowly. "It has specific provisions," the lawyer said. "Very specific. The house is to be made available to widows with dependent children. Widows in immediate crisis. The arrangement was to be temporary, lasting until the widow could secure stable housing." The kitchen tilted. "Mr. Kwon? Are you there?" "She planned this," Minjun whispered. "It appears so. The documents are very detailed. Very intentional. Your wife, Dr. Lee Ji-won, she was quite thorough." Minjun stood up. Started pacing. His free hand was shaking. Why? Why would she do this? Why would she want strangers in our house? The lawyer was quiet for a moment. According to the file notes, she didn't want the house empty. Her words were, "A house without life is a grave. And I won't let my husband build a grave." The phone nearly slipped from Minjun's hand. He didn't say goodbye. He just hung up. Minjun stood in the middle of the kitchen shaking. Skylee was at school. Naima had explained that yesterday. Hope was napping. Naima was in the garden planting something. Growing something. Making the dead earth alive. He walked outside. "We need to talk," he said. Naima stood up. Dirt on her hands. Hope in her eyes. She already knew. Somehow she already knew. "My wife set this up," Minjun said. His voice didn't sound like his voice. "Before she died, she created a trust. She put provisions in place. She arranged for you to be here." Naima's face went pale. "I didn't. How long have you known?" "Not long. A few days." The lawyer. "And you stayed anyway? Knowing that this was planned? Knowing that Ji-won, my wife, she orchestrated this entire thing?" Naima dropped the shovel. "I had nowhere else to go." Minjun's voice cracks. "She's been dead 4 years and she's still controlling my life. She's still making decisions for me. She's still telling me what to do." Naima's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know it would hurt you," she said. "I didn't know. Everything hurts me." Minjun's words came out like a shout. Like a scream. Like 4 years of grief finally breaking through the surface. "Everything hurts me. And now I find out my wife, the woman I loved, she lied to me. She planned this. She sent you here like I'm some broken thing that needs fixing." "That's not what she did," Naima said quietly. "Then what did she do? Explain it to me. Help me understand how my dead wife gets to make decisions about my living." That's when Skylee appeared in the doorway. She was supposed to be at school. Are we leaving? She asked. Her voice was small, afraid. For the first time since Minjun met her, she sounded like a 7-year-old. Naima and Minjun both froze. Naima looked at her daughter, then back at Minjun. I don't know, she whispered. Skyly turned to Minjun. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Do you want us to? She asked. Minjun opened his mouth, closed it. He couldn't speak. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't answer. I don't know, he finally said. Skyly nodded like that was the only honest answer anyone could give. Then we'll wait, she said. We'll wait until you know. That night, Minjun sat in the study with the lights off. He'd been sitting there for hours. Not moving. Not thinking. Just existing in the dark. Around 2 a.m., the door opened. Skyly stood there in pajamas, holding a ratty doll with one eye missing. She didn't ask if she could come in. She just sat down on the floor near his chair. Close enough to be present. Far enough to give him space. I have bad dreams sometimes, she said into the darkness. Minjun didn't respond. They're about my dad. About him leaving. He didn't mean to. He was just at work. And then he was gone. And Mom cried for so long I thought she'd never stop. Minjun ist Zeitend. Are you going to make us leave? Skyly asked. I don't know yet. That's okay. But I'm more scared of watching Mom give up than I'm scared of us leaving. Minjun looked at her. Really looked. This 7-year-old girl. This child who'd already lost her father. This girl who understood loss the way most people understand breathing. I won't make you leave tonight, he said. Skyly nodded. What about tomorrow? Minjun's voice cracks. I don't know. That's okay. Mom says promises are hard when you're sad. She left before he could respond. 3 days later, an envelope arrived. No return address. No posti. Someone had hand-delivered it to the front door. Minjun's hands shook before he even opened it. Inside were documents, legal papers, and a transcript. A printed transcript of a voicemail. His wife's voice. Recorded. Preserved. Speaking to him from 4 years in the past. Minjun read the words. If you're reading this, someone contacted you. Good. That means the trust worked. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it because I know you. You'll lock yourself in that house and call it loyalty. You'll stop living and call it love. So I'm sending you something you can't ignore. A family that needs what you need most. A reason to open the doors again. I'm not asking you to replace me. I'm asking you to survive me. And Minjun, you can't do that alone. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. All he could do was feel. The crushing weight of a wife who loved him so much she planned his salvation for years before he needed it. A woman who looked into her own death and decided that his survival mattered more than his comfort. Minjun grabbed his keys. He got in the car. He drove. 2 hours passed. Then 3. His phone rang 6 times. He didn't answer. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he needed to move. To run. To escape the reality that Ji-won, even dead, had orchestrated his entire existence. At a rest stop near the highway, he finally stopped. He read the full voicemail transcript. Word by word. Over and over. Until the words blurred into tears. He cried until he couldn't breathe. Until his shoulders shook. Until the helplessness of it all consumed him. Not because his wife was right, but because she knew him. Knew him better dead than he'd ever known himself alive. Every light was on. Not welcoming. Waiting. Skyly stood at the window, watching the empty driveway. He's coming back, she said quietly to her mother. Naima's voice was broken. How do you know? Skyly pointed to the chair by the study door. To the jacket Minjun had left draped across it. To his wallet on the coffee table. To his shoes by the door. Because he didn't take any of his things, Skyly said. And people who are really leaving take everything. Did you feel that? That moment when you realize the person you love most has been loving you even after they're gone? That's what just happened to Minjun. And his entire world just shattered. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let the person you love disappear into grief. Sometimes it's forcing them to choose between staying broken or becoming whole. Ji-won didn't just die. She planned her own death. Not physically, spiritually. She decided that her love would be bigger than her absence. And now Minjun has to decide if he's brave enough to accept that gift. If you've ever loved someone so much that you tried to save them even after you were gone, subscribe. If you understand what it means to be haunted by someone's love instead of their memory, you need to see how this ends. Comment. Would you forgive someone for planning your life after they died? Or would that feel like control? He drove back as the sun set. The house appeared through the trees like it was waiting for him. Every light was on. Not welcoming. Not trying to be beautiful. Just on. Like they'd known he would come back. Because they had known. Minjun parked in the driveway. He sat in the car for 5 minutes before he opened the door. 5 minutes of breathing. 5 minutes of preparing himself for something he didn't understand yet. He walked in slowly. Naima sat at the kitchen table, eyes red from crying. Hope slept in her arms, her small body rising and falling with each breath. Sky Lee stood by the window, watching the darkening sky. When the door opened, she turned. "You came back," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A fact. A relief. Minjun nodded. "Are you still mad?" Sky Lee asked. Minjun looked at her. This 7-year-old girl who understood anger and acceptance better than most adults. "Yes," he said. Sky Lee nodded like that was exactly what she expected to hear. "Okay," she said. Sky Lee walked closer to him. She didn't touch him. She just stood near him, close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her small face. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," she said. "I knew it was wrong, but I was more scared of you leaving than of you being angry." "Minjunes jotaitsent. That doesn't make it right." "I know," Sky Lee said simply. "You made choices for me, Sky Lee. You and your mother both did. We didn't know what else to do." Minjun turned away. "You could have been honest. From the first night, you could have told me the truth." Sky Lee's voice came quiet and steady. "Would you have listened?" The question hung in the air between them like smoke. Minjun couldn't look at her. He couldn't deny it. "No," he finally said. "Probably not." Naima stood up slowly. Hope shifted but didn't wake. "I should have told you the truth the first night," she said. Minjun's eyes were hard. "Why didn't you?" Naima's voice shook. "Because I saw your face when you walked in. You looked like someone who'd lost everything. You looked like me. And I thought," she paused. Took a breath. "I thought maybe we could help each other by being honest about some things and quiet about others. By giving you time to see us as people, not as some plan your wife made." "But that's exactly what you are," Minjun said. "You're Ji-won's plan. Her project. Her way of reaching beyond the grave and controlling me." "Maybe," Naima said quietly. "But I'm also a woman who was living in her car with 2 children. And you're also a man who was slowly disappearing. And maybe, just maybe, we both needed what she saw we needed." Minjun had no answer for that. "I want you to hear something," Minjun said suddenly. He pulled out his phone. The audio file was there. The voicemail. Ji-won's actual voice. Not a transcript. Not words on a screen. Her voice. Warm. Alive. With that laugh she did. The one that started in her belly and came up through her whole body. "Minjun, I love you, even when you're being impossible. Especially then. So do me a favor and let these people stay. Let yourself feel something again. And if you can't do it for you, do it because I'm asking." The kitchen went silent. Sky Lee stared at the phone. At the speaker. At the space where Ji-won's voice had just been. "She sounds nice," Sky Lee whispered. "She was," Minjun said. His voice was breaking. "She was the nicest person I ever knew." Sky Lee looked at him. "Then she's right. You should let us stay." Minjun shook his head. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" Sky Lee asked. His voice cracked completely. "Because I'm terrified." "Of what?" the girl asked. Minjun looked at this 7-year-old with ancient eyes and told her the truth. "Of caring about you. Of loving you. Of losing you the way I lost her. Of going through all of this again." Sky Lee stood and walked to him. She was so small. So breakable. But she moved like she carried the weight of the world. You won't lose us, she said. You can't promise that. Yes, I can, Skyly said. Because we're not going anywhere unless you make us. And we're staying even if you're mad. Even if you don't trust us yet. We're staying until you believe we're real. Minune's face crumpled. His shoulders shook. He couldn't speak. Naima stood. We'll give you space, she said. We'll earn your trust back. Whatever it takes. Whenever it takes. How long will that take? Minyoon whispered. As long as you need, Naima said. Minjoon looked around the kitchen. At the drawings on the fridge. Hope's scribbles and Skyly's careful pictures. At the dishes in the sink. At the half-made jjigae on the stove. At his house that had become their home. At the life that had somehow taken root in the space where he thought only grief could grow. I'm not okay with this yet, he said finally. Naima nodded. That's fair. But I'm not making you leave. Naima's shoulders dropped. Relief and terror mixed together. Okay, she whispered. I just need to know we can stay. Skyly nodded. We have time, she said. We can wait until you're ready. Minjoon walked toward the stairs, then stopped. He turned back. You're right about earning trust, he said to Skyly. You need to earn it. All of you. But he paused. You already have some of it. Skyly's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. How much? She asked. Minjoon looked at this girl who understood loss and courage and survival better than anyone he'd ever met. Enough to stay, he said. Morning came quietly. Minjoon woke on the couch. He still couldn't take the bedroom, and didn't move right away. He just lay there, listening. Naima's soft voice from the kitchen. The baby babbling. Skyly's careful footsteps on the stairs. The sounds of a house being lived in. Being loved. Being filled with breath and sound and presence. He'd almost lost this. Almost walked away permanently. Almost let his fear of the future destroy the only thing that could save him. Do you understand what just happened? A man who spent 4 years running from his grief just chose to stay. Not because everything is fixed. Not because his fear is gone. But because he realized that the people in front of him, the ones he's terrified of loving, they're willing to earn his trust. They're willing to wait. They're willing to be real with him. That's forgiveness. Not forgetting. Not pretending it didn't hurt. But deciding that the person in front of you is worth the risk of your own heart breaking again. And here's what Minjoon doesn't know yet. This is only the beginning. Because staying in the house is one thing. But becoming a family? That's going to require him to do something he's spent 4 years avoiding. He's going to have to actually live. If you believe that sometimes the people who save us are the ones we're least expecting to meet, subscribe. Because what happens next will show you what it really means to choose love over safety. Comment. Have you ever been afraid to love someone because you were afraid of losing them? Tell me what changed. 1 week passed. Minjoon didn't leave. He didn't call his lawyer. He didn't pack a bag. He just stayed. And staying, he discovered, was its own kind of decision. It was a Tuesday morning when everything started to shift. The back door hinge was loose. It had been loose for 4 years. Ji-won used to complain about it. Marcus, that sound is going to drive me crazy, she'd say every time they came in from the garden. He'd kept meaning to fix it. Then she was gone, and he'd never been back here. Now there was a hinge that needed fixing. Minjoon found his tools in the garage, dusty, but still there. Skyly appeared in the doorway, barefoot and curious. Can I watch? She asked. He nodded. She sat on the step and handed him screws without being asked. One by one. Anticipating what he needed before he asked for it. The kind of attention that came from watching her father work. From learning that taking care of things was an act of love. You know tools, Minjoon said. Dad taught me. He said everyone should know how to fix things. Said it was important to be able to take care of what matters. Minyoon's hands tilt. Smart man. He was, Skyly said. Simple. Factual. Like she was still speaking to him in the present tense because in some ways, she was. Then she asked the question that broke him open. Do you miss your wife? The screwdriver clipped his finger and fell to the ground. Sorry, Skyly said quickly. Mom says I ask too much. Minjun picked it up slowly. It's fine. You didn't answer. I know. She handed him another screw. It's okay if you do, she said. Missing people doesn't have a time limit. Minjun looked at her, really looked. At this 7-year-old with wisdom she shouldn't have. Who told you that? He asked quietly. The grief counselor Mom made me see after Dad died. I didn't like her much, but that part was true. That's the only true thing, she said. They finished the hinge in silence. But something in that silence was different. It was the silence of two people who both understood that some losses never stop being losses. They just become part of you. That evening, there were 4 plates on the table. Minjun stopped in the doorway. The kitchen smelled like gochugaru and collard greens. Like 2 worlds coming together. Like survival mixed with love. What's this? He asked. Naima looked up from the stove. Dinner. I made enough for everyone. Minjun shifted his weight. I usually eat later. Skyly spoke from her chair, not looking up from her drawings. You usually don't eat at all. We hear the microwave at midnight. Minjun felt exposed. Seen. But he sat. Halfway through dinner, Skyly set down her fork. Do you eat with us because you want to or because you feel bad? Naima froze mid-bite. Skyly, that's not. Minjun raised his hand. It's okay. He looked at Skyly. I eat with you because eating alone stopped feeling normal. Skyly studied him. When did it stop? The day you set 4 plates, Minjun said. The day I realized someone was making space for me. That I was expected. That I mattered. Skyly picked up her fork again. Good. Because we like when you're here. Something in Minjun's throat burned. Not pain. Something else. Something like the beginning of healing. That night Minjun couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch and heard it, crying from upstairs. Not the baby. Naima. Silent tears. The kind of crying a woman does when she thinks no one can hear her. He stood outside her door, hand raised to knock. But he didn't. He just listened. To someone else's pain. And in listening he recognized it. It was the same pain he'd been carrying alone for 4 years. The crying stopped. The door opened. Naima stood there, face red, caught. Exposed. I heard, Minjun said quietly. I've fine. You're not. I will be. They stood in the hallway. 2 people holding grief in completely different ways, but understanding it was the same weight. I'm sorry, Naima said. I try to keep it quiet. I don't want to burden you. Minjun almost left. You think your pain is a burden? I've been walking around this house like a ghost for 4 years. A ghost, Naima. At least you're still feeling things. At least you're still alive enough to cry. Naima's eyes filled. Feeling things is terrible. I know, Minjun said. Then why do people say it gets better? Because lying is easier than the truth, Naima whispered. What's the truth? Naima looked at him. Really looked. And told him something that would change the way he carried his grief forever. It doesn't get better. You just get stronger at carrying it. He nodded and turned to leave. But Naima spoke again. The soup. You ate it tonight. You ate all of it. That matters. He stopped. She was right. It did matter. Later, alone in his room, he sat on the bed and understood that she was right about everything. Eating mattered. Being present mattered. Letting himself feel mattered. For the first time in 4 years, mattering felt possible. The next morning, Skyly sat at the kitchen table with crayons spread everywhere. Red, blue, black, yellow, colors bleeding into each other. What are you making? Minjun asked. A map, she said. But not like regular maps. It's feelings drawn as places. She pointed to different sections of her paper. This is the worried corner. And this is where happy lives. And this. She tapped a dark spot in the middle. This is where people go when they can't find their way back. Minjun sat down. Where am I on this map? Skyly studied him with a seriousness that made her look ancient. Then she drew a small figure standing between 2 places. Between light and dark. Between leaving and staying. Here, she said. You're in the middle. Of what? Leaving and staying. His chest tightened. Which way am I going? Skyly shook her head. I don't know yet. You keep moving back and forth. Like you can't decide if you're allowed to stay. Minjun stared at the drawing. What if I don't choose? Skyly looked up at him with eyes that had already lived too much. Then you stay stuck. And stuck isn't a place. It's just waiting. That afternoon, laughter erupted from the living room. Real laughter. The kind that fills empty spaces and makes them less empty. Minjun stood in the doorway. Skyly and Hope had built a blanket fort. Pillows everywhere. Naima sat nearby, smiling. Really smiling. Not the careful smile she'd been wearing since he agreed they could stay. It looked like a family. For the first time since Ji-won died, Minjun didn't reject the image. He didn't turn away. He didn't remind himself that this was temporary. He didn't protect himself by deciding it would inevitably disappear. He just watched. He just let himself see it. And in that moment, something fundamental shifted. Not everything was fixed. Not all his fear was gone. But his body understood something his mind hadn't accepted yet. He was ready to live again. Do you feel that? That moment when you realize you've been so busy surviving that you forgot how to actually live? That's what just happened to Minjun. And it's changing everything. But here's what he doesn't understand yet. Choosing to live isn't a one-time decision. It's 1,000 small decisions. Eating at a table instead of alone. Listening to someone's pain instead of running from it. Watching a family laugh instead of convincing yourself it's not real. And every single one of those decisions is an act of courage. Because staying in a house is one thing. But letting yourself believe you deserve to be happy again? That's the hardest thing anyone can ask of a broken heart. If you've ever had to relearn how to live after losing everything, subscribe. Because what happens when Minjun finally accepts that he deserves this happiness will make you believe in second chances again. Comment. What was the first small thing that made you feel alive again after loss? 5 Uhr morgens. Skyly woke up burning. Naima heard her first. That sound a mother never forgets. The sound of a child in distress. She was out of bed before her eyes opened. Up the stairs before her heart could catch up. Minjun heard the movement. Footsteps. Panic. He was already moving. The bedroom door was open. Skyly lay on the bed, her small body curled into itself. Her forehead glistened with sweat. Her breathing was shallow. Naima had her hand on the girl's forehead, and her face had gone white. What's wrong? Minjun was already in the doorway. She's burning up. I don't know how high. The thermometer broke last week and I haven't replaced it, Anne. Minjun moved. Get her coat. Get Hope. We're going to the clinic now. It's 5 in the morning. The clinic doesn't open until. Emergency clinic. Emergency room. I don't care. Get her coat. The drive that should have taken 15 minutes took 9. Minjun had never driven like that before. Not since he was young. Not since before he learned to be careful. But this wasn't about being careful. This was about a 7-year-old girl with her father's eyes lying limp in the back seat while her mother held her like she could transfer her own life force through touch. Naima kept murmuring, "Please, please, please." Minjun's hands were white on the steering wheel. He didn't say anything. He just drove faster. Minjun carried Skyly through the emergency entrance. She weighed almost nothing. Like grief made physical. Like loss you could hold in your arms. Naima fumbled with insurance cards that she held like they might save her daughter's life. "I'm not sure if these are." "I'll handle it," Minjun said. He handed his credit card to the receptionist without asking the cost. Without hesitation. Without the calculation that usually came with money. This wasn't about money. This was about Skyly. This was about the promise he'd made. They took Skyly back immediately. In the waiting room, Naima broke. Not loudly. Not with screaming. Just silent tears running down her face while she held Hope, who didn't understand why her sister wasn't here. Why her mother was shaking. Why the world had suddenly become terrifying. Minjun sat beside her. He didn't try to comfort her. He just sat. Present. Witnessing. "She's going to be fine," he said quietly. Naima shook her head. "You don't know that. The nurse said it's probably just a virus. That's what they said about David. They said it was probably stress. Probably a bad day. Probably he just needed to rest and... Her voice cracked completely. Then he died in a parking lot. 8 months later, and the wound was still open. Still bleeding. Minjun's hand moved before he could think about it. He put it on her shoulder. Skyly's not dying. You can't promise that, Naima whispered. No, Minjun said. But I can stay here until we know. I'm not going anywhere. Naima looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in her face. Why are you doing this? She asked. Minjun thought about the last time he'd run from someone who needed him. About the 4 years of empty rooms. About the silence that had almost consumed him completely. Because you can't do it alone, he said. And I've already learned what it feels like to do everything alone. I don't want you to learn that. An hour later, they brought Skyly out. Pale. Weak. But awake. She was holding a popsicle like it was treasure. Strep throat, the doctor said. Antibiotics twice a day. She'll be completely fine in a few days. The fever should break within 24 hours. Naima sobbed into her hands. Not from sadness. From relief so profound it broke her into pieces. Skyly slept in the back seat, her small hand still clutching the popsicle stick. The city lights passed them by. The night was finally beginning to fade into early morning gray. Thank you, Naima said quietly. Minjun kept his eyes on the road. For what? For not making me beg. For just being there. For staying. Minjun was quiet for a moment. I wouldn't have made you beg. Naima looked at him. How do I know that? Minjun glanced her. At her exhausted face. At the way she was still trembling. Because I didn't, he said simply. I'm here. I stayed. That's how you know. Back at the house, Minjun carried Skyly inside and laid her on the couch near the fireplace. He brought blankets, the expensive ones that Ji-won had bought years ago. He made tea that Naima wouldn't drink. He sat on the floor beside the couch. Hours passed. He didn't leave. Didn't sleep. Just sat there, watching this girl's chest rise and fall. Watching the fever slowly release her. Watching the moment when healing began. Around sunset, the fever broke. Skyly's eyes opened. Glassy. Tired. But clear. The first thing she saw was Minjun. You stayed, she whispered. I told you I would. People say that. They don't always mean it. Minjun reached out and brushed the damp hair from her forehead. I meant it. Skyly's small hand found his. Her fingers were still warm, still fevered, but they held on. Does this mean you're not leaving anymore? She asked. Not today or not ever? He could have said not today. He should have said not today. Kept the escape route open. Protected himself. Kept his options available for when this all became too much. But he looked at her. Really looked. At this child who'd already lost her father. At this girl who understood courage better than most adults. At this small person who'd been the bridge between his grief and his healing. Something in him settled. Like a door finally closing. Like a choice finally being made. Not ever, he said. Skyly smiled and closed her eyes again. Naima stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Minjun looked up at her. He saw the fear. The hope. The desperate need to believe that this was real. That he was real. That he wouldn't disappear. He nodded. Just once. A promise without words. Morning came quietly. Minjun was still on the floor. His back was stiff. His neck ached. His legs had fallen asleep hours ago. He didn't care. Skyly woke slowly. She looked down at him, still sitting there. Still keeping his promise. You stayed all night, she said, wonder in her voice. Yeah. Your back's going to hurt probably. Minjun smiled. Good. Skyly tilted her head. Why? Minjun looked at this girl. This miracle who'd walked into his dead house and brought him back to life. Because it means I care, he said. And caring about someone means they're worth the pain. That moment right there. When you realize that staying for someone, actually staying, not just physically but emotionally, that's the hardest thing love asks you to do. That's when everything changes. Minjun didn't just stay at the hospital. He stayed on the floor. He stayed through the night. He stayed when he could have run. And in staying, he made a promise that goes beyond words. He promised that he's done running. But here's what he doesn't know yet. This isn't the hardest thing he'll have to face. Because staying is one thing. But what happens when the house tries to force him to make a real choice? What happens when he has to decide between the safety of his old life and the risk of his new one? If you've ever been afraid that the people you love will eventually leave you, subscribe. Because what happens next will make you understand that real love is choosing to stay even when staying terrifies you. Comment. What was the moment you realized someone would actually stay for you? 1 week after the fever broke, Naima stood motionless by the kitchen counter. 2 suitcases sat by the front door. Not dusty, not forgotten. Packed, tight, ready. Minjun walked in, and the world stopped. He knew before she said it. You can always tell when someone has already made a decision. It's in their spine, in the set of their shoulders, in the way they don't look at you. What's happening? His voice came out wrong. Afraid. Naima still didn't turn around. We're leaving today. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water, creating ripples, creating endings. Why? Minyoon moved closer. Naima, why? She finally turned. Her eyes were clear. Not sad. Not angry. Just clear. Like she'd already cried all her tears before he woke up. Because it's time. Did something happen? Minjun's mind was racing. Did I do something? Did I say? No. Then why now? Everything is good. Skylee is better. You're. Naima's voice came steady and certain. Because I can feel you getting comfortable. And that's not fair. Minyoon's her. Fair to who? To you. To us. To everyone. Naima crossed her arms. This was always temporary. I knew that when we came. You knew that when you decided we could stay. And I let it go too long. I started believing in something that was never supposed to be permanent. I never said you had to leave. Naima's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. You never said we could stay either. The words hit harder than anger ever could. Skylee appeared at the top of the stairs. Hope on her hip, her sister's small body a weight in her arms. She looked down at the suitcases. Lena Minyoon. Then at her mother. She didn't ask questions. She already understood. Children always understand before adults admit it. We're going, Skylee said quietly. Minyoon's stomach dropped. Where? He asked. Naima's jaw tightened. I'll figure it out. You don't have a plan, Minjun said flatly. I have enough for a week at a motel. After that, Naima stopped. Started again. I'll find something. I always do. Minyoon looked to her. At the exhaustion. At the way she was bracing herself for survival again. For going back to the car. For being alone. For teaching her daughters that the world was not safe. That homes could disappear. That love could evaporate. His voice cracked. You can't just leave like this. Naima walked to the suitcase by the door. She touched it like it was a lifeline. Why not? It's what you've been waiting for. That's not true. Isn't it? Naima's voice rose. You've been counting days, Minjun. I see you. You're getting more comfortable, and I can feel you also getting more trapped. You're feeling like you made a commitment to us, and now you're stuck. That's not fair to you. You don't know what I've been thinking. Then tell me. Minjun opened his mouth. The words were there. The truth was there. But he couldn't speak it. Because speaking it meant admitting something he wasn't ready to admit. He closed his mouth. Naima nodded like his silence confirmed everything. Exactly, she said. You don't know. And that means you're not ready. Skylee came down the stairs slowly. One step at a time. Deliberate. Careful. She set Hope on the floor. The toddler didn't understand. She just played with a toy. Unaware that her world was about to shift again. Skylee turned to Minyoon. Her voice was small. But certain. Do you want us to leave? Simple question. Impossible answer. Minjun looked at this girl. This 7-year-old who had already learned that love was unreliable. That people left. That promises meant nothing. I don't know, he said. Skylee's face didn't change. But her eyes did. They got old. Ancient. Like she was watching the end of something she'd already mourned once before. Then we have to go, she said. Why? Minyoon whispered. Because not knowing means you're not ready. And we can't wait for people to be ready. My mom taught me that. She waited for my dad to be ready to stay healthy. She waited for her family to be ready to help us. She waited for people to be ready to love us. And we lost everything anyway. Skylee's small voice filled the kitchen. I'm not waiting anymore. Naima picked up the second suitcase. Say goodbye, Skylee, she said gently. Skylee looked at Minjoon for a long moment. And in that moment he saw everything. He saw 4 years of grief. He saw 8 months of survival. He saw a 7-year-old girl learning that hope was dangerous. Thank you for letting us stay, Skylee said quietly. The house was happier with us here. I think you were too. She walked toward the door. Minyoon hat hemelt. Wait. Everyone stopped. Naima turned slowly. Wait for what? She asked. He didn't know. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have words. He just knew that if they walked out that door, the house would go silent again. And the silence would kill him. He thought about 4 years of empty rooms. He thought about the piano no one played. He thought about grief so thick it became a second skin. He thought about his wife's voice in his head, laughing at him for being such a coward. Stay, he said. Naima didn't move. What? Stay. His voice was breaking. Not for a day. Not for a week. Just, he exhaled hard. The hardest exhale of his life. Just stay. Naima shook her head. You don't mean that. You'll regret it tomorrow. You'll wake up and realize we're a burden, and you're not a burden. His voice came out stronger than he felt. You can't promise that, Naima said. Minyoon walked closer. He looked at this woman who'd been living in her car, who'd lost her husband, who'd been so afraid of loving him that she was choosing to protect him by leaving. I can promise this, he said. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't have all the answers. But I know that the thought of you walking out that door is worse than any fear I have about what comes next. Naima stood frozen in the doorway. Skylee turned around. Do you promise? She asked. Minyoon looked her. Promises are hard when you're sad, he said, repeating her words back to her. But yeah, I promise. Skylee studied his face, looking for cracks, looking for lies, looking for proof that adults could be trusted. Then she sat down her sister and closed the door. They sat by the door for 3 days. Nobody moved them. Minjoon pretended not to see them. Naima walked past them like they were ghosts. Skylee stared at them every time she passed, waiting for him to change his mind. On the 4th day, Minjoon picked them up. He carried them upstairs, one in each hand, up the stairs, down the hallway, into Naima's room. He set them against the wall. Not hidden. Just moved. Just put away. When he came back downstairs, Skylee was waiting. You moved them? She asked. Yeah. Does that mean we're staying? Minjoon looked at this girl who'd already learned that hope could disappear. It means the door was getting blocked, he said. Skylee smiled. We both know what it means, she said. That moment right there. When you realize that not knowing can't be an excuse anymore. That choosing to stay, even when you're terrified, is the only way forward. Minjoon didn't move those suitcases because he had all the answers. He moved them because he finally understood that perfect certainty will never come. And if you wait for perfect certainty, you'll lose everyone who's brave enough to love you. But here's what's about to happen. Moving the suitcases is one thing. Actually building a family? That requires Minjoon to do something he's been avoiding for 4 years. He has to open a door that he locked on the day his wife died. And what he finds behind that door will show him that his wife wasn't just trying to save him through Naima and Skylee. She was also trying to give him permission to say goodbye. If you've ever been afraid to let go of someone because you were scared of forgetting them, subscribe. Because what happens when Minjoon finally opens that locked room will break your heart and rebuild it all at once. Comment. What was the moment you stopped waiting for certainty and just chose to stay? The door at the end of the hallway had been closed for 4 years. Minjoon walked past it every day, sometimes twice a day. But he never opened it. Never even stopped. Just passed by like it was a wall that had always been there. Like it wasn't the room where his wife had slept. where she'd read books and painted her nails and left her life behind like breadcrumbs he couldn't follow. Today he found Skyly sitting outside it. She was barefoot, cross-legged, just sitting there in the hallway like she'd been waiting for him. "What are you doing?" Mignonne asked. Skyly didn't look away from the door. "Waiting." "For what?" She turned to him slowly. "For you to go in." His chest tightened. The anger came first. Fast. Hot. Protective. "That's not your business." "I know," Skyly said calmly. "But you stand here sometimes at night. I hear you. Your footsteps. Your breathing. Sometimes you stand here for an hour and don't do anything except stand." He should have been angry. Should have told her to mind her own business. But he just felt tired. "I don't go in that room," he said. "Why not?" Minjun looked at the door. At the handle he never touched. At the space where his wife lived in suspended animation. "Because it's hers." "Your wife's?" "Yeah." Skyly stood up slowly. She was so small. How did something so small understand so much? "Can I ask you something?" she said. "You're going to anyway." Do you think she'd want it locked? His throat closed. He couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. She was asking him something he'd been asking himself for 4 years. "I don't know what she'd want," he whispered. Skyly tilted her head. "Yes, you do. You're just scared you're wrong." She walked away before he could respond. Left him standing in the hallway with his hand trembling. That night, he stood outside the door again. His hand touched the knob. It turned easily. Smooth. Waiting. He didn't push. Just stood there with the door unlocked but closed. One movement away from everything changing. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. Naima stood there, hope on her hip. The baby was almost asleep, her small head drooping. "Sophie, I didn't mean to interrupt," Naima said softly. "You're not." They stood in the hallway. 2 people on opposite sides of grief. "Skyly told me about this room," Naima said carefully. "Mignonne ist reizend." "Of course she did. She's worried about you. She shouldn't be. She's 7. She worries about everyone." Minjun let go of the knob. "I haven't been in there since the funeral." Naima shifted the baby to her other shoulder. "Why not?" "Because once I go in, it's real. She's really gone. And I'm not." His voice broke. "I'm not ready to accept that." Naima's eyes softened. But her voice stayed firm. "She's already gone, Minjun." "I know that." "Do you?" His hands curled into fists. "What do you want me to say? That I'm pathetic? That I'm wasting my life grieving someone who's been dead for 4 years? That I should just move on and pretend like?" "I think you're punishing yourself," Naima interrupted. "And I think that room is how you do it." Minjun's voice went cold. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right. I don't. But I know what grief looks like when it's rotting someone from the inside. And you're an expert at it." Naima stepped closer. "Im surviving mine." That's more than you're doing." The words hung between them like a slap. Minjun turned away. "Get out of my hallway." "It's not just your hallway anymore," Naima said quietly. He spun around. "Yes, it is. This is my house." Naima looked at him with such sadness. "Then why does it feel like hers?" The question broke something open in him. Because it was true. The whole house still felt like hers. The furniture she'd chosen. The dishes she'd picked out. The piano she'd played badly every Sunday morning. The locked room that held her frozen in time. "Because everything is hers," he whispered. "The furniture. The dishes. The piano. The locked room. All of it. I'm just the one stuck living in a tomb." Naima stepped closer. Then opened the door. "I can't." "Why?" His voice cracked completely. "Because if I do, I'll have to let her go. And I don't know how to live without her." Naima stepped closer. She didn't touch him. But her presence was enough. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. "How do you know?" Mignonne whispered. Naima's voice shook. "Because I do it every morning when I wake up and my husband isn't there. Every single morning I have to choose to keep living even though David is gone. And you know what? Some mornings I fail. Some mornings I just cry. But I still get up. I still make breakfast. I still try. Miljones ang gelegd. It drained out of him like water from a cup. He leaned against the wall and slid down until he was sitting on the floor. Naima sat beside him. The baby slipped into sleep between them. I loved her so much, Minjun whispered. I know. And I don't know how to stop. Naima's hand moved. She didn't touch him. Just rested it near his on the floor. You don't have to stop, she said quietly. You just have to keep living anyway. That's what love becomes when someone dies. It becomes this thing you carry. Heavy. Always. But you carry it while you're also making breakfast, and going to work and laughing at your daughter's jokes. They sat there until the baby fell asleep completely. Until the hallway felt less like a tomb and more like just a hallway. Skyly watched from her bedroom door, barely breathing. She whispered to the house, to the walls that had held so much grief. He's almost ready. The house creaked once, like it agreed. Morning came quietly. Minjun opened the door to Jiwon's room. Just a crack. Light spilled into the hallway for the first time in 4 years. Dust particles floated through the light like ghosts. Skyly walked past in the hallway. She stopped, looked at the open door. Didn't say anything. Just smiled and kept walking. Minjun stood in the doorway for 20 minutes. He didn't go in. Just looked. Everything sat exactly where Jiwon had left it. Books on the nightstand. Her reading glasses on top of one. Jewelry on the dresser. A sweater draped over the chair like she'd just taken it off to get more comfortable. For years frozen. Finally he stepped inside. He sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress still smelled like her. Jasmine. That expensive perfume from Korea that she wore on special days. Naima stayed in the doorway. You okay? She asked softly. I thought being in here would break me. And it just feels sad. Really sad. But not broken. Naima nodded. Sad is better than nothing. Minjun picked up the book from the nightstand. She'd left it face down halfway through. The bookmark was still there. Marking her place. Marking where she'd stopped living. She never finished this, he said. What is it? Something about a woman rebuilding after loss. Naima stepped into the room slowly. She sat in the chair, Jiwon's chair. The one by the window where she used to read. Can I say something that might make you angry? Naima asked. Go ahead. I think she finished. Just not the way she planned. Minjun looked up. What do you mean? Naima leaned forward. The rebuilding. She couldn't do it herself. So she made sure you would. By sending us. By forcing you to open this house again. By giving you a reason to keep living. Minjunes hens shook. By giving me a bridge through you. Exactly. I'm so angry at her, Minjun said. I know. She's been dead for years and she's still controlling my life. Naima's voice came quiet. Or she loved you enough to plan for after she was gone. To make sure you wouldn't disappear the way she did. Minjune's voice cracks. I don't want her plan. I want her. I know. But you can't have that. Then what am I supposed to do? Live anyway. Naima looked at him with such depth, such understanding. Yeah. One day, one choice, one moment of not giving up. That's how you honor her. Not by keeping her room like a shrine, but by living the life she wanted for you. Minjun's tut. I'm leaving this door open, he said. Not because I'm ready, just because keeping it closed isn't working anymore. Naima nodded. That's enough. They walked out together. Left Jiwon's room breathing for the first time in 4 years. Downstairs, Skyly was teaching Hope how to stack blocks. Carefully. One on top of another. Building something. Skyly looked up when they entered. You went in, she said. Yeah. How did it feel? Minjun sat down on the floor beside them. Hard. Really hard. But also good. Skyly picked up another block. Why is that good? Minjun watched his daughter build. Because easy things don't change you. Hard things make you stronger. They make you real. Skyly smiled. Where do you learn all this? Minjun asked. She looked up at him with those ancient eyes. I don't learn it. I just know it. That right there. When you realize that opening a door isn't about moving on from someone you loved. It's about letting them rest. It's about honoring them by not becoming a ghost yourself. Minjun didn't open that door to forget Ji-won. He opened it to finally, truly, begin living in a way that would make her proud. But here's what he's about to discover. Opening that door is just the beginning. Because now that he's finally accepted that he deserves to live, that his daughters deserve to have a father who shows up fully, he has to make a choice that will bind them together forever. A choice that will take the love he has for them and make it legal. Make it permanent. Make it undeniable. If you've ever had to honor someone you lost by living the life they wanted for you, subscribe. Because what happens when Minjun realizes he wants to make this family official? When he finally understands that he wants to be their father, not just their guardian. That moment will restore your faith in second chances. Comment. What's one thing someone you lost would want you to do with your life that you've been afraid to do? The porch light glowed. The same light that had died 4 years ago. The same light that had come back to life when Naima and her daughters walked into Minjun's house. He sat on the porch steps, watching the city lights blink awake. Naima came out with 2 cups of tea. She didn't ask if he wanted any. She just sat beside him and handed him one. They'd been doing this for months now. Sitting in silence. Building something that didn't need words. Finally, Minjun spoke. I want to adopt them. Naima's hand froze mid-sip. What? The girls. Skyly and Hope. I want to make it legal. Official. So there's never any question about where they belong. Naima set down her tea slowly. That's too much. Too fast. Minjun here. No, it's not. If you'll let me. Naima's voice cracked. Why? Minjun looked at this woman who'd been sleeping in her car. Who'd lost everything. Who'd trusted him enough to stay. Because I love them. And I don't want there to be any question about where they belong. Not legally. Not anyway. They're my daughters, Naima. I need it to be official. Naima's face crumpled. They're not yours, she whispered. Yes, they are. Maybe not by blood. But they're mine and I'm theirs. Naima sobbed into her hands. I don't know what to say. Minjun reached over and took her other hand. Say yes. Yes, she whispered. God. Yes. Minjun held her while she cried. Not sad tears. Relief tears. The kind of crying that comes when you finally believe you're safe. Minjun and Naima sat down with Skyly at the kitchen table. Her cereal was getting soggy. She was drawing instead of eating. A habit. Minjun took her hand gently. Can we talk about something? Skyly looked up. Her ancient eyes already knowing. Okay. How would you feel if I became your dad? Legally? Like adoption? Skyly's crayon stopped moving. Her whole body went still. She looked up slowly. And in that moment, Minjun saw the little girl underneath all that wisdom. The 7-year-old who'd already lost one father. Who didn't know if another one would stay. My real dad, she asked quietly. I can't replace him. No one could. Your dad was special. He taught you everything. He's always going to be your dad. But I can be here permanently. I can be the one who stays. Like adoption? Skyly whispered. Yeah, like adoption. Her face crumpled. Not from sadness. From overwhelming relief. You really want us? Minjun's throat closed. More than anything in this world. She launched herself at him so hard they both nearly fell backward. Her small arms wrapped around his neck like she was afraid he'd disappear. Yes. Yes. Yes, she said into his shoulder. Minjun hielt her tight. Do you promise? Skyly pulled back. Tears everywhere, but smiling so hard her whole face lit up. You love me? she asked, needing to hear it one more time. Minjun's voice cracked completely. I've wanted to say that forever, but I was scared. I've been so scared. But yes, Skyly. I love you so much. Really, she asked. Really? With everything I am. Skyly pulled back and looked at him seriously. Can I call you Dad? Minjun couldn't speak. He just nodded. I want to, she said. She tested it out. Dad. Minjun's heart broke open and reformed into something bigger. Something that could hold all this love. Months of court dates passed. Home visits. Paperwork. Background checks. Parenting classes. Minjun did it all without hesitation. Did it with intention. Did it with love. On the day the judge signed the papers, they stood in the courthouse. The marble echoed with their footsteps. The world felt smaller and bigger at the same time. Congratulations, the judge said. You're officially a family. Outside on the courthouse steps, they took pictures. Naima cried through every single one. Hope waved at strangers who had no idea they were witnessing the birth of a family. Skyly held the adoption certificate like it was made of gold. We're really yours now, Skyly said to Minjun. He looked at this girl who'd walked into his dead house and brought him back to life. You were always mine, he said. This just makes it official. They celebrated with cake. Store-bought. Imperfect. But Skyly insisted on candles. Real candles. Not electric. She wanted to make a wish. What are we celebrating? Minjun esktia. Skyly looked at her family, her mother, her sister, her father, and smiled bigger than he'd ever seen her smile. Everything. Being together. Being safe. Being a family. They sang off-key and loud. Hope got frosting on her nose. Naima laughed so hard she cried. Minjun watched all of them and felt something he thought he'd never feel again. Joy. Real joy. Not borrowed. Not temporary. Real. After the girls were asleep, Naima found him cleaning up the kitchen. You okay? She asked. I'm better than okay. She noticed the tears on his face. You're crying. I know. She moved closer. Talk to me. Minjun set down the plate he was washing. I thought my life ended when Ji-won died. I thought I'd never feel whole again. I thought I was broken in a way that couldn't be fixed. He turned to her. And now I realize I wasn't supposed to feel the same. I was supposed to feel different. I was supposed to feel expanded. Naima's eyes filled. Is that okay? She asked. Yeah. It's more than okay. It's everything. Naima hugged him. She'd be proud of you. Minjun hilhia. I hope so. I really hope so. Skyly lay in bed with Hope beside her. The baby was almost asleep. Skyly whispered into the darkness. We have a dad now, she said. A real one. Not because of blood, but because he chose us. And that's better. Hope babbled sleepily. I know, Skyly said. It's the best thing ever. Minjun stood in the doorway, unseen. He watched his daughters sleep. His daughters. The word still felt impossible. The word still felt like a miracle. That moment right there. When you realize that family isn't something you're born into. It's something you choose. Every single day. You choose to show up. You choose to stay. You choose to love even when it terrifies you. Minjun didn't just adopt two girls. He adopted a whole new understanding of what life could be. He learned that grief doesn't end when someone dies, but it can transform. It can become the foundation for something beautiful. But here's what's about to happen. Now that he's officially a dad. Now that the papers are signed. Now that Skyly can call him by a name that means belonging. Everything he's built is about to be tested in the most beautiful way possible. Because a garden is about to bloom. And this family is about to learn that happiness isn't about perfect moments. It's about showing up for the imperfect ones. If you believe that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about romance, they're about a man learning to be a father, a mother finding safety, and two girls discovering that family can be chosen, subscribe. Because the ending of this story will show you that second chances are real. And that sometimes, the family you're meant to have finds you when you stop looking. Comment. Have you ever chosen your family? Tell me about the moment you realized they weren't blood, but they were everything. 1 year later. Minjun couldn't remember the exact moment he stopped counting days. Stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Stopped preparing himself for everyone to leave. It just happened. Slowly. Like the way flowers bloom when you're not looking. Saturday morning. Grocery store. Ordinary. Skyly held his hand in the cereal aisle. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Hope pointed at everything, saying that in her toddler voice. Naima walked beside them, laughing when Hope tried to grab a box of Lucky Charms. An older woman passed them. She smiled. Beautiful family, she said. Minjun opened his mouth to correct her. To explain the truth. That they weren't related by blood. That this was complicated. That. He stopped. He looked at Skyly's hand in his. At Hope pointing excitedly at cereals she'd never eat. At Naima laughing. At the way they moved together like they'd always been moving together. Thank you, he said to the woman. In the car, Skyly asked from the back seat. Why didn't you tell her we're not really related? Minjun kept his eyes on the road. Because it doesn't matter. Family isn't just blood. It's who you choose. Who chooses you back. Skyly was quiet for a moment. So we're really a family? Minjun looked at her in the mirror. Yeah, we really are. She squeezed his hand tight. Even from the back seat, her grip found him. One evening, Naima told him about the job offer. Good pay. Benefits. Everything a woman rebuilding her life would need. A city job. Independence. Freedom from needing anyone. Minjun's chest went cold. When, he asked. Next month. If I want it. He couldn't speak. The fear came back. That fear that had haunted him since she'd arrived. That fear of loss. Of everyone leaving. Naima saw his face. I don't know if I want it, she said quickly. Part of me thinks I should take it. Build something independent. Not rely on you for everything. Minjun moved closer. You're not relying on me. It's all us. But what if something happens? What if you change your mind? Minjun took her hands. What if I won't? You can't promise that. Everyone says they'll stay. Then they. I'm not everyone, Minjun said. His voice was steady. Certain. And I'm not promising to stay because I have to. I'm promising because I choose to. Every morning, I wake up and I choose this. I choose you. I choose the girls. I choose to be a dad. Naima's eyes filled. What if you change your mind? She whispered again. I won't. But even if I did, even if I became someone terrible, you still have a home. This house is legally yours now. The girls are legally mine. Nothing changes that. Naima cried into her hands. I want to stay, she said finally. I want to keep working at the library. Part-time. Enough to feel like I'm building something, but not so much that I miss this. I want to stay because I'm happy. And I don't want to run from happy anymore. Minjun hil here. Good. Stay. Please stay. Summer came like a blessing. Minjun stopped working from home entirely. Stopped checking emails. Stopped living like half a person. He just lived. Skyly ran through sprinklers in the yard, her laughter cutting through the heat. Hope toddled after her, soaking wet, squealing with joy. Naima worked part-time at the library and came home smelling like paper and possibility. Everything had a rhythm now. Not boring. Just safe. One morning, he found Skyly at the piano. The same piano that had been sad. The same piano that had waited for him. Do you want to learn? He asked. She looked up. You know how to play? No. But we could learn together. Within a week, she was playing simple songs. Badly. Off rhythm. But with joy. Your wife would have liked this, Skyly said, playing the same wrong notes G1 used to play. Yes, she would have. Do you still think about her? Minjun listened to his daughter play. Every day. Does it hurt? He thought about the honest answer. Sometimes. But mostly it just makes me grateful. For what? Minjun pulled her close. That I had her. And that she led me to you. Afternoon thunder came sudden and loud. Hope got scared. Naima held her, singing a lullaby in a language Hope didn't understand, but somehow soothed her. Skyly pressed against the window, watching rain hammer the glass. Minjun stood beside his daughter. The flowers will be okay, he said. How do you know? Because strong things survive storms. Are we strong? Skyly asked.
Minjun knelt beside her.
Yeah, we are. Hope's crying got louder. Thunder cracked the sky. Minjun took her from Naima and walked her around the room, bouncing gently. You're okay, sweet girl. It's just noise. It can't hurt you. I've got you. Hope's crying slowed. She pressed her face into his shoulder and trusted him completely. Naima watched them, tears in her eyes. What? Minjun asked. Naima smiled. Nothing. You're just good at this. At what? Being their dad. The word still felt new, but not wrong. When the storm passed, Skyly ran outside. They made it, she shouted. The flowers they'd planted months ago. The ones they'd chosen together, watered together, waited for, were bent but not broken. Still blooming. Still alive. Minjun kneeled beside his daughter. Skyly straightened one flower carefully. Did we survive? She asked. All the bad stuff? Mom losing dad, you losing your wife, us being alone. Minjun looked at this girl who'd saved his life by simply being herself. Yeah, we survived. And we found each other because of it. So bad things can lead to good things. Sometimes. Not always. But sometimes. Skyly nodded seriously. I'm glad the bad stuff happened then. Minjun's eyes closed. Why? Because it brought us here. And here is my favorite place in the whole world. That evening, Naima asked to talk. They sat in the study with the door half open. The same room where Minjun had sat in darkness a year ago. The same room where everything had changed. I'm scared, Naima said. Of what? Of losing you. Of waking up and this all being a dream. Of you changing your mind. Minjun took her hand. It's not a dream. And I won't change my mind. Because I'm choosing this. Every single morning I choose you. I choose the girls. I choose to stay. I choose to be a dad. You can't promise that forever, Naima whispered. I can and I do. Right now. I promise you, Naima. I promise Hope and Skyly. I promise myself. I'm not going anywhere. Naima's eyes filled. I believe you. Good. Because I mean every word. The next morning came with small hands shaking him awake. Dad, wake up. The flowers bloomed. All of them. Come see. Minjun let himself be pulled out of bed. Let himself be led outside. Let himself see what they'd created together. The garden was full of color. Reds. Yellows. Purples. Everything they'd planted. Everything they'd waited for. Skyly stood in the middle of it all, spinning slowly. See. Perfect. Minjun looked at his daughter. His home. His family. Yeah. Perfect. And he meant it. Not because nothing could go wrong, but because now when things did go wrong, they wouldn't face it alone. They'd face it together. That was the real gift. Not the house. Not the plan. A second chance. That evening, Minjun stood in the hallway. He looked at the girls' rooms. Heard their steady breathing. Walked past Jiwon's room, the door still open. He spoke softly to the space where his wife used to be. I did it. I kept living. I let people in. I became someone you'd still recognize. I became their dad. Silence answered, but he felt peace. Not the absence of her, but her presence transformed. He looked at the drawing on his wall. For people. One house. Our family. He'd come here expecting trespassers. Found belonging instead. Lost everything once. Gained everything again. Different but real. He thought about Jiwon's voicemail, her final gift. She'd known he'd fight. Known he'd resist. Known he'd try to stay broken. So she gave him no choice. Sent him people who needed what he needed. Forced him to care when caring felt impossible. Made him live when living felt like betrayal. And she'd taught him the hardest lesson. Love doesn't end when people die. It just finds new ways to grow. Minjun turned off the light and lay down. Tomorrow, Skyly would wake him with questions. Hope would demand breakfast. Naima would make coffee too strong. The house would creak and settle. And he would be there for all of it. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. The garden was blooming. The house was full. The rooms were no longer empty. And for the first time in years, Minjun wasn't just surviving. He was living. He was loving. He was home. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. When a man who thought his life was over finally understands that it was just beginning. When a woman who lost everything discovers that starting over is possible. When two girls who learned that love was temporary finally learn that it can be permanent. Minjun's journey wasn't about finding love in an unexpected place. It was about learning that grief doesn't disappear when you let someone in. It transforms. It becomes the foundation for something stronger. But here's what this story really is. It's proof that second chances exist. That blended families are real families. That the people we choose can love us as deeply as the people we were born to. That sometimes the greatest act of love is staying when staying is the hardest thing to do. If you believed at any point that this story would end badly, that Minjun would run, that Naima would leave, that Skyly would lose another father, and you're crying right now because it didn't subscribe. Because there are more stories like this one. More people choosing their families. More healings that start in unexpected places. Share this with someone who needs to know that it's possible to rebuild. That broken people can build beautiful lives. That your story doesn't end when someone dies. It just gets a new author. Comment below. What was the moment you realized that family wasn't about blood? Tell me your story. Tell me how you found your people.